final draft was complete.
One of the things that question document examiners do to authenticate documents is to look at the type. And so when you study the typography and become familiar with how the hot lead printing presses of that era worked, you find that once every so often there was a letter Z that was raised because it was not commonly used. We found a document from that era that shows a raised Z, and we have in our own document about every third Z is raised. This is just exactly the kind of thing that telegraphs authenticity.
If you're talking about leaked documents, the provenance of leaked documents, we need to know where they've come from. We need to see the originals, and one has to admit that in 99% of cases we do not see the originals.
We have several documents that are original pages. These permit testing that cannot be done with copies. For example, we can date a document by analyzing its ink. A small sample is punched out, leaving a pinhole in the paper. The ink is then dissolved, and by using liquid chromatography, the colors are compared with a standard library of inks. The imprint made by the individual typewriter keys can be used to compare with a library of typewriter fonts. The watermark on the paper can often be found and dated. Sometimes we can even see through the blacked out areas and decipher the hidden words.
During the authentication process of the Eisenhower briefing document, Stan Friedman went to the National Archives, and in the presence of an archivist found in their files what's known as the Cutler-Twining Memo, which mentions MJ-12, MJ-12 Special Studies Group. We have an original onion skin paper with the appropriate watermarks, original declassification markings. It is a hard, physical, testable piece of paper. It's in a secure facility at our National Archives in College Park, Maryland.
This declassified document seems to provide proof that MJ-12 was a reality, even though the government has never acknowledged its existence.
So, after you use these question document techniques, to the best of your ability, it turns out that the documents almost speak for themselves as being genuine.
If the majestic documents are real, they provide new insight into perhaps the most closely guarded secret in the history of the world, a secret that has been fiercely protected for a very long time.
I think that government secrecy, classifying this information at what amounts to an above top secret level, was absolutely warranted in 1947, and maybe earlier, because I think all this business got started perhaps during the Second World War.
It is the recommendation of the President's Special Panel, with concurrence from Majestic 12, that a policy of strict denial of the events surfacing from Roswell, New Mexico, and any other incident of such caliber be enforced. An interactive program of controlled releases to the media, in such fashion to discredit any civilian investigation, be instituted in accordance with the provisions of the 1947 National Security Act.
Certainly in 1947, the government could not afford to tell the world. They could not afford to say, look, there are these alien spacecraft penetrating our airspace. We don't know where they're from, what they want, or how they operate, but we thought you'd like to know. That would have been totally irresponsible. But there's no question it was justified at the time until they had answers.
I think it's quite possible that much secrecy is due to the fact that the authorities do not have all the answers. That they cannot be certain from a day-to-day basis or even a year-to-year basis or whatever as to precisely what is going on.
By the mid-1960s, the government's apparent interest in UFOs was waning, but a rash of new sightings of unexplained lights and moving objects reignited the debate.
We are being observed by some type of device which is ahead of us, far ahead of us, and is probably controlled by a highly advanced superior civilization. Now, this is a conclusion which I personally have stated and is shared by some members of our Board of Governors and advisors, not all of them. But it has reached to the point where many people in the Air Force have the same conclusion. In fact, the Air Force at one time had a top secret estimate that these things were interplanetary spaceships.
Based on what is known of the technology and intelligence of the visitors, it is fairly certain that there will be other sightings and encounters of a spectacular nature. As to the purpose and modus operandi, we are not certain, but it is clear that if these visitors had conquest in mind, it would not be difficult for them, given their ability to penetrate our airspace at will.
I think that now it's evolved into a more multi-layered problem. Part of it dealing with high technology projects and keeping them secure. If they tell the public a few things, there would be a clamor for more information that might jeopardize the security of these programs. Another problem is that the fact that they've covered it up so long would create a sort of backlash against the government and the intelligence establishment.
If these documents show a long, systematic, highly articulated process for handling UFO-related information, for sequestering that information, for marshaling it here and there, and for keeping everybody else out of the loop, completely unaware, the structure that caused that to occur is a phenomenon in world history.
I think the MJ-12 documents are extraordinarily important. Probably the most important government documents ever leaked to the public, because they make clear, if they're genuine, that the United States has known that aliens are visiting Earth, that they are not perfect. Obviously, at least one crashed. And we have been taking measures to try to learn as much as we could from the wreckage and to try to understand what's going on.
Why on earth would they have kept it secret? The discovery of extraterrestrial life, the greatest discovery in the history of man. The main reason, of course, is still a valid reason today, and that is to make sure that our enemies, namely in those days, the Soviet Union, did not get the technology. The technology was the driver. In addition, the reason for keeping it secret is to not let the public know that we really couldn't control our airspace.
With urgent speed, the jet fighters rush to get in the air. Every second counts. They must be able to intercept the mystery plane before it can reach a target and drop its bomb.
One example of technology discussed in the documents is a report, an analytical report from the Research and Development Laboratory dated 2 September 1947, where it has an early description of fiber optics in essence, and it says,
flight instruments and controls are activated by optical waveguide fibers, similar to glass rods, except they are flexible and have a plastic cladding wrap.
This cladding wrap is sort of the key breakthrough in fiber optics that allows increased signal to noise. Now here, this is the guy talking and describing fiber optics in 1947.
One of the documents that was particularly exciting is a document that was done at the end of the summer of 1947, prepared and approved by Lieutenant General Nathan Twining. This included the results of what our scientists and engineers had been able to evaluate and determine during the summer. And one of the things that really strikes me is a description that talks about a series of fine grid-like lines connecting a series of dots in pure silver. This is very close to a description of an integrated circuit today.
One interesting thing about the craft itself, it carried no fuel. There was no fuel. They assumed that it was propelled by a series of cells, octagon-shaped cells underneath the craft itself, which indicates that evidently they were grasping energy from the atmosphere some way. That is one of the areas that they haven't discovered or haven't found out yet.
As far as this idea of reverse engineering a crashed or captured spacecraft, I would hope that's been done. I'd hate to think that something has been sitting there longer than the lifetime of most of the people who will see this program and nothing's been done to it. The potential for learning is astounding, and not attempting to reverse engineer it would be unthinkable.
The YB-49 flying wing makes its maiden flight This is the shape of things to come.
Well, what if in the last 5 years we've developed new techniques for monitoring vehicles in the sky? We've got stealth aircraft, maybe the other guy will have stealth aircraft. Should that be made public? And if we use those techniques to monitor flying saucers, should that be made public? Should the secrecy continue now? I've never been an advocate for putting everything on the table, especially technology. I have mixed feelings about what the government should do about covering up the truth about flying saucers. I would like the government to stand up, take away the ridicule that's been heaped on a lot of people. So a government announcement would bring forth a tremendous amount of data.
Are these documents authentic, and is their narrative real? I believe that there are 4 possibilities. One, of course, is that they are frauds created as a hoax by a gifted amateur. The second possibility is that they are officially constructed disinformation, perhaps created decades ago for the purposes of Cold War misinformation for some kind of geopolitical purpose. The third possibility is that the narrative is a mixture of fact and fiction. And then the fourth possibility, of course, is that they are authentic, genuine, leaked documents that describe some remarkable events concealed from the history books.
The concept that we are not alone in the universe has captivated many since the beginning of mankind. Throughout history, artists have included flying objects in their paintings, like this one from 17th century painter and protege of Rembrandt, Art de Gelder. Today, believers outnumber skeptics 3-2. People around the world continue to report UFO sightings, but proof of extraterrestrial contact remains elusive. If the MJ-12 documents are genuine, the story they tell is astounding. If and when this story is brought to light, what impact will it have on our destiny?
Philosophically speaking, I have to say that we're moving rapidly into a different kind of world in which the possibility of life from elsewhere is increasingly non-alarming.
Our space exploration is bringing us to the point where we're ready to explore the outer planets, and probably within a century go outside of our solar system altogether. So it's time that all of this is exposed for the sake of science, for the sake of the stability of our government, for the sake of civilization itself.
I've steeped myself in flying saucer information for more than 40 years. I worked on classified government-sponsored programs. It's clear that there has been an organized effort to discredit every aspect of the UFO phenomenon. These documents are no exceptions. If they're genuine, they're of extraordinary importance for all of mankind.
If, in fact, we have recovered an extraterrestrial spacecraft sometime in the past 50 years, then, of course, we are in possession of definitive evidence that we are not alone. One of my heroes in life, Carl Sagan, was fond of saying, on the day that we do discover that we're not alone, our society may begin to evolve and transform in some incredible and wondrous new ways. That's a day to look forward to, I believe.